In a groundbreaking move, the Rajasthan High Court has ordered the registration of all live-in relationships in the state. The aim is to provide legal recognition and protection, especially for women. However, it has stirred a debate on privacy rights. Critics argue that it is an overreach, while supporters say it is a step towards safety. But let's just bring in our panelists at this stage. We're joined by Colin Gonzalez, Satya Mule, Rahul Ishwar, and we've got Avinash Gehlot, the Cabinet Minister of Social Justice and Empowerment of Rajasthan. Mr. Gehlot, let me come to you first. Avinash ji, ये बताइए, कई लोगों का कहना है कि एक privacy का मामला है यहाँ, और अगर live-in relationship को register करने का compulsory है, register करना ज़रूरी है, तो privacy शायद impact होता है. तो आप इस पे क्या कहेंगे?
देखिए, आज ऑनरेबल राजस्थान हाई कोर्ट की एक सिंगल बेंच का फैसला आया है. इस सिंगल बेंच के फैसले में ये कहा गया है कि लिव इन रिलेशन में जो भी कपल्स रहते हैं उनको एक रजिस्ट्रेशन करवाना होगा अनिवार्य रूप से, और आने वाली 1 मार्च 2025 को इसकी पालना के संबंध में उसकी फर्दर रिपोर्ट से भी माननीय उच्च न्यायालय को अवगत करवाया जाएगा. मेरा ऐसा मानना है कि जब 18 साल लड़की की उम्र और 21 साल लड़की की उम्र है जो शादी के लिए हमारे जो कानून है उसके अनुसार लागू की गई है, इसके बाद भी बहुत सारे ऐसे कपल्स हैं जो लिव इन रिलेशनशिप में रहते हैं. उसमें दो तरीके की बातें हैं. एक तो ये है कि जो ये कहते हैं कि हमें हमारे परिवार से खतरा है, जो लिव इन में रहते हैं उनको अपने परिवार से, सोसाइटी से खतरा रहता है. एक दूसरा उसका दूसरा अगर प्रोस्पेक्ट अगर हम लोग देखें तो परिवार में माता पिता की सहमति के अलावा जो लोग इस प्रकार के रिलेशन में रहते हैं, मुझे लगता है कि वो बहुत
All right, sorry, we'll get that line back with him. But Colin Gonzalez, would you like to respond to some of those points where he says that, look, it is mandatory, it is the right thing to be done?
It's obviously contrary to the Supreme Court judgment in the Sami's case. The right to privacy is a fundamental right. And once you have a couple that is above 18 years, I don't think there's any law in the country that can be made, which is constitutional, which says that the government has a right to keep into your bedrooms. It's a very perverse kind of thing for any government to do. It's a very obnoxious thing and destructive of privacy. And this is directly contrary to the Sami judgment.
I understand.
And to say that we want to do this.
Yes.
Sorry.
So no, go ahead.
And
go
to
ahead.
say
Finish your point. Yeah.
that we want to do this to protect women is laughable. If any woman wants protection, she can certainly go to the police as a single woman and get protection against her partner. There's no problem at all. To say that we're doing this to protect women against their families is also a joke.
Okay,
because
but I have a counter to that argument,
police.
Mr. Gonzalez. One of the points which has been mentioned is that registering live-in relationships provides a legal framework for addressing issues like property rights or child custody that could arise from such unions. And therefore, is it necessarily all bad?
Well, that's a voluntary thing for couples to do. A couple that is unmarried can enter into an agreement and say that in the case of my death, my property would go to my partner to this extent and so on.
But
so
shouldn't
there are
that be
legal
legalized,
ways
sir?
of doing things without actually making it compulsory. This is a compulsory thing, don't forget. It's not open for a live-in couple to say, don't you dare come near me and try and force me to register. It's a law binding you to comply with that provision.
Right. So what you're saying is that if you are in a live-in relationship and there are children, the children have certain rights, issues such as property are taken care of. Is that what you're suggesting, sir?
Can be taken care of by the couples entering into certain agreements.
No, but on a voluntary basis or on a legal basis? Because the
Everything
argument
is
that's made
voluntary.
is that we need to legalize it through signing and saying that, look, we are in a live-in relationship, I've registered this relationship, therefore children or issues like property, perhaps others, if there is a problem, if there is a concern, will be legally sorted out. That's one argument.
Yeah, I can understand. I can understand if it's voluntary and you do something. Let's say we haven't yet seen these kind of documents, but what you're doing actually in the guise of protecting unmarried men and women, particularly unmarried women, is you're forcing them into a particular declaration, which will, of course, be made public, and you're forcing them to get into a kind of a agreement, really, with the government and the authorities and even the police can police what you do
Yep.
within that relationship
Okay.
and the places you stay and so on.
Let me get a
I
response.
see it as a very kind of terrorizing legislation, really.
Rahul Ishwar, would you like to respond to that? Colin Gonzalez, of course, is a champion of freedoms. I mean, he's built his career on that. And I think we all respect the fact that our freedoms and our privacy is important. But that's his argument. The contrary argument, of course, is one of safety. He says that it doesn't facilitate safety of women. Quite to the contrary, there are others who say that in fact it does. People are protected if there is that registration of names. Where do you stand?
Vishnuji, as a right conservative activist, I respect Colin Gonzalez ji, but we all love freedom, but we should also have responsibility along with liberty. Liberty is not a standalone virtue. It has to have some kind of responsibility. We cannot let our society into some kind of anarchy. Of course, as a right conservative Hindu activist, we are all having apprehensions regarding the very idea of live-in. But having said that, many people are opting for live-in relationships. Let us have more formal structure for it. Let there be some kind of check and balances. Let there be guidelines. Is that not a very legitimate position? Because a lot of liberal activists used to argue that when live-in was accorded some kind of a legal status and respectability, it is so-called a forward progressive move. But when that has to be registered, how can it become regressive? So we need to have some kind of a structure, because man-woman relationship, male-female relationship, sexuality, family coming together is the base of any society. And we cannot have anarchy in that particular sphere. So there needs to be a structure. There needs to be some kind of samvidhan in that particular thing. You cannot have a free-for-all kind of an aspect. So I believe our youngsters should take that positive note. And if they are in a serious relationship, let them register it. Is that not the fair position to go ahead with it? So
Okay.
live-in, I know I seriously have apprehension towards it. But when courts are increasingly accepting, understanding the changing nature of relationship, why can't they register and be responsible about it? What is so terrorizing about being responsible in a relationship?
So let me put that across to Satya Mule. You can answer what Rahul is saying, but another point is that could this, in fact, the registration of names of live-in couples, be a move towards formalizing live-in relationships, in a sense normalizing them and reducing societal stigma? Live-in relationships, by and large, not accepted in India. There are all sorts of problems. But if you go ahead and register and say, look, I have nothing to hide, I am in a live-in relationship, I've registered it, and therefore I normalize it. Is there an argument is that an argument, Mr. Mule?
Yes, of course, that is an argument. See, India is opening to various concepts of the Western culture, and live-in relationship is one of those. As of today, India is not fully open to this kind of a concept, but in metro cities, youngsters who are in live-in relationship, who are genuinely enjoying this kind of arrangement, face a lot of difficulties in the society. They are unable to find rented accommodation. They are finding difficulty to travel together, and so on and so forth. Apart from that, they themselves are so young that they do not understand the dynamics involved in this kind of male-female relationship, which is not amounting to marriage. Because what is happening these days is it's not just about two willing couples, two willing adults. It is also having various negative dynamics, such as married people are also entering into live-in relationship with third partner. So there needs to be some kind of a regulation in order to protect the rights of females, the rights of the children born out of the live-in relationships, and there has to be some regulation. Otherwise, what will happen is that there will have a negative rippling effect on the society and the societal fabric of our nation.
Okay.
What is happening is that the existing laws are falling short on all the subjects, including the upbringing of the child, recognition of the child rights, maintenance rights of the females who are into this kind of a relationship, and therefore these subjects are reaching the courts. and therefore the courts is giving this kind of opinion. It's not that the courts are giving this kind of orders so moto. They are giving a direction to the legislature for them to think and bring something which is worthwhile and regulate for the benefit of people who will want to be live in the relationship and continue to live in this society in a harmonious manner.
ओके अविनाश जी, इस जजमेंट के क्रिटिक्स को कहना है कि इसके कारण एक स्टिग्मेटाइजेशन हो सकता है, अर्थात ये एक रिक्वायरमेंट है जिसके तहत लिव इन रिलेशनशिप्स को मॉनिटर किया जाएगा, कंट्रोल किया जाएगा और प्रिवेसी कभी रह नहीं पाएगा और पुलिस इंटरफेयर करेंगे। बेसिकली ये एक खतरा है, ये एक कंसर्न है। आप इसमें क्या, आपका क्या राय है इस पे?
देखिए, मैंने पहले भी कहा है कि लिव इन में रहने वाले कपल्स के लिए दो तरीके की चीजें होती है। एक तो ये है कि जब ऑनरेबल हाई कोर्ट ने ये फैसला दिया है कि इसका एक रजिस्ट्रेशन होना चाहिए, एक सोसाइटी के अंदर जब इस प्रकार के वाकया होते हैं, जब लिव इन में रहने के बाद में जब कहीं 376 का जो रेप का जो मुकदमा है वो पुलिस थानों में दर्ज होते हैं, उसके बाद बहुत सारे ऐसे जो क्राइम हैं वो को आधार दिया जाता है, उसके बाद में क्राइम बढ़ते हैं। लिव इन के रजिस्ट्रेशन के बाद में जो ऑनरेबल हाई कोर्ट ने कहा है, मैं सोचता हूं कि गवर्नमेंट को ये करना चाहिए कि वो लिव इन का रजिस्ट्रेशन करे और एक सक्षम अधिकारी जो होता है, चाहे वो सब डिविजनल मजिस्ट्रेट हो, चाहे वो एडीएम लेवल का हो, चाहे डिविजनल मजिस्ट्रेट हो, इसके लेवल का ब्लॉक लेवल पे देखें या डिस्ट्रिक्ट लेवल पे देखें, तो इस प्रकार का होना चाहिए ताकि सोसाइटी के अंदर भी ये मैसेज जाना चाहिए कि लिव इन में ये लोग रह रहे हैं। प्राइवेसी की बात अगर करें तो वो ठीक है, लेकिन अगर आप लोग एडल्ट हैं, अगर लिव इन में रहना चाहते हैं तो समाज इसकी इजाजत देता है, लेकिन आप रजिस्ट्रेशन भी इसका करवा लें। वहां हम लोगों को ये स्थिति भी देखनी पड़ती है कि जहां पेरेंट्स की इच्छा के विपरीत अगर कोई लड़के लड़की जो एडल्ट हैं वो रहते हैं लिव इन में, तो माँ बाप के ऊपर क्या बीती है। शहरों की बात तो मैं अलग नहीं करूंगा, लेकिन आज भी गांवों के अंदर जहां हम लोग रहते हैं वहां 65% से ज्यादा लोग जो गांव में रहते हैं उनके माता पिता की जो स्थिति है वो इतना क्रिटिकल हो जाती है, समाज में वो चेहरा दिखाने के लायक नहीं होते हैं। जब उनकी जो एडल्ट लड़के लड़के किसी बिना शादी के भी साथ में रहते हैं तो सोसाइटी के अंदर एक नेगेटिव मैसेज जाता है। लेकिन इस कोर्ट के फैसले के बाद में मैं सोचता हूँ राज्य सरकार जो स्टेट गवर्नमेंट ऑफ राजस्थान इस पर विचार करेगी, इस पूरे फैसले को पढ़ेगी और पढ़ने के बाद जो भी ऑनरेबल कोर्ट ने कहा है और वापस फर्दर जो उसकी रिपोर्ट मांगी है उस पर विचार करेंगे। विचार करने के बाद में ये भी देखेंगे कि प्राइवेसी जो है वो भी खत्म नहीं हो, लोगों को जीने का अधिकार है, लिव इन का जो अधिकार है उसमें किसी प्रकार की कोई प्रॉब्लम ना आए। प्रशासनिक तंत्र से, चाहे पुलिस हो चाहे एडमिनिस्ट्रेशन हो, उनकी तरफ से भी कोई दिक्कत ना आए और एक समाज में जिस तरीके से जो मैरिज सर्टिफिकेट होता है उस तरीके से एक की जो रजिस्ट्रेशन हो जाएगा, मैं सोचता हूँ उनके बाद में जो के बच्चे होते हैं, फैमिली है, उनको भी कोई प्रॉब्लम नहीं आएगी। एक रजिस्टर्ड डॉक्यूमेंट्स बन जाएगा कि
Okay, Avinash, एक second. Let me get Colin Gonzalez's point on this. You know, specifically to the point that Avinash ji mentions that live-in relationships have to be seen in the context of social acceptability in India. He says that in the large number of villages that he represents or elsewhere in a state like Rajasthan, live-in relationships are looked down upon. Therefore, you are in a sense protecting a couple in a live-in relationship by giving them a status, right? After they've signed and they've said that, look, we are in a relationship. In a sense, it formalizes that equation. In India's context, is that a fair argument, sir?
See, I think we are talking about a kind of morality of a kind of particular type of political morality. Can you imagine what will happen if you try and register a live-in relationship between people of different castes? Can you imagine what will happen if they are different religions? Is it really meant for the protection of the woman? Or is it meant to ferret out those women and punish them immediately as soon as they declare they want to live in a relationship? And you guarantee that they would have freedom, choose a man of their choice, irrespective of caste and religion. This is all morality of a right-wing sort. It is pretending to be for the purpose of the woman. It is meant to punish women who don't agree with their parents and who don't want to go according to caste lines and who don't want to go according to religion. It's the most dangerous invasion of privacy. And I can tell you one thing, young people in this country are having relationships that these old fuddy-duddies don't realize. They don't know what's happening. And they will certainly not agree to do something forcefully. Voluntary you do, they may choose to register, they may choose not to register, but you cannot make it compulsory. What's the argument to make it compulsory? May I know? What is the argument to make it compulsory?
Avinash ji, would you like to, or let me put that across to Mr. Mule. Would you like to briefly answer his point, Colin's point, that why must it be made mandatory? If you want to register, you can register. If you choose not to, you don't have to. There are people in this country who are married but haven't registered. So therefore, in the case of a live-in relationship, why must it be made mandatory?
Well, the live-in relationship, the way it looks, it is not all that rosy. It has got a lot of pitfalls, and the registration is targeted towards closing these loopholes and pitfalls so that protection, comfort, and a good surviving zone can be created for the people who are interested in live-in relationship. Having said this, it is already coming to the forefront that judicial system is accepting that live-in relationship is the reality and there is nothing to shy away from it, and it is in fact giving direction to the government that they should work towards bringing this kind of relationship into some kind of recognition so that it is encouraged. Having said this, it is not that the direction is not that people should register from day one. They are having a buffer time of almost 6 months. If somebody is wanting to continue, therefore they want to, let us say, want to hire a house, they will want to declare some particular rights, they will want to, enroll into some kind of a registration, plan that is proposed by the High Court. And in fact, what happens is, if you are not doing that, it is also not going to be possible for the government to, go to door and find out if somebody is going to survive in a live-in relationship and force them to, register. It is all going to boil down to a voluntary coming forward and having themselves registered.
Right.
It is not going to be something which is mandatory. But what Mr. Collins is saying is completely against Indian culture as well as Western culture, where we are like talking that we have to survive like animals. We don't want to recognize the law of marriage. We don't want to recognize the law of cohabitation. We don't want to recognize the law of nature. We don't want to recognize everything because there is freedom and liberty enshrined in the Constitution of India, and there is privacy enshrined in the Constitution of India. Listen, we have to coexist in the society.
All right.
And there are shortcomings,
All right.
shortcomings in the existing laws.
You now. I'll
and
take
therefore,
your last
therefore,
words
this
as your
particular
final
thing.
comment that we need to coexist in society. Equally, I take what Colin has to say, that we need to ensure that relationships which involve different castes, relationships which involve different religions, and ultimately the rights of women are protected by this, that women aren't punished, and that this isn't an opportunity for groups to target them. I think we can all agree that this is to protect people, right? It's not to target them.